The morning light came through the window, soft and golden, the kind of light that should have promised peace. But Catherine wasn't feeling peace. She was staring at the man beside her in bed, her husband of 3 days, and her hands were trembling so hard she had to press them against her chest to keep them still. His face was turned toward the window. That face, the same jawline, the same scar running just above his left eyebrow, the same hands that had once held a gun to her father's head. She'd married a stranger, that much was true. A quiet man who'd come to town looking for work, who'd courted her gently, who'd spoken soft words and made promises under the stars. She'd said yes because she was tired of being alone, because the frontier was hard on a woman by herself, because she'd wanted to believe in something good again. But now, as he stirred in his sleep, she saw it, really saw it. Thomas Farrow, the outlaw who'd ridden with the Clayton gang, the man who'd robbed the stagecoach her father had been guarding 6 years ago, the man whose bullet had left her father bleeding in the dust while they rode off laughing. Her heart hammered so loud she thought it might wake him. She slid out of bed, slow and silent, her nightgown catching on the rough quilt. She backed toward the door, her eyes never leaving him. And then he opened his eyes. He looked at her, and in that one look, he knew that she knew. The silence between them was heavier than iron. Now let me ask you something, friend. If you woke up one morning and realized the person lying beside you had once destroyed everything you loved, would you run? Would you scream? Would you reach for the rifle hanging over the door? Or would you stand there frozen, wondering if the man who hurt you then could still be the same man who held you gently just the night before? Love and hate, they're closer than most folks want to admit, and sometimes they live in the same heartbeat. Catherine had been 17 when the Clayton gang came through. Young, foolish, still believing the world was mostly good. Her father, Daniel Ross, was a freight guard. Honest work, hard work. He'd been escorting a payroll shipment when they ambushed him on the canyon road. 5 men, masks pulled low, guns drawn. She remembered the day the marshal came to their door, remembered the way her mother collapsed, remembered the cold, hollow feeling that settled in her chest and never really left. They never caught the men. The gang scattered like smoke, and the law moved on to other crimes, other bodies. Catherine grew up angry. She worked her mother's farm after fever took her too. She learned to be hard, to trust no one, to keep her heart locked up tight. And for 6 years, that worked just fine. Until Thomas Farrow walked into her life. He didn't call himself that, of course. He called himself Thomas Ford, a drifter, a ranch hand, a man looking for a fresh start. He was kind, respectful. He helped her fix the fence without being asked. He tipped his hat and never stared too long. He didn't push, didn't rush, just stayed. And slowly, so slowly she didn't even notice, Catherine's walls came down. He asked her to marry him on a Sunday evening, standing in her garden with his hat in his hands. He looked nervous, vulnerable, like a man who'd been alone too long and didn't want to be anymore. She said yes because she believed him, because she wanted to believe that people could be good, that she could be happy again. The wedding was small, just the preacher and a neighbor as witness. He put the ring on her finger, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. But hope, it turns out, can be a dangerous thing. The first night he held her like she was something precious. He whispered that he'd protect her, that he'd never let anything hurt her, and she believed him. She fell asleep in his arms, feeling safe for the first time since her father died. It was the second night when she saw the scar. They were sitting by the fire, and the light caught his face just right. That scar above his eyebrow, thin, jagged, like a knife had grazed him. She'd seen it before. She knew she'd seen it before. And then the memory hit her like a fist. The wanted poster, the one the marshal had nailed to the post office wall 6 years ago. 5 faces, 5 names, and one of them, third from the left, had that exact scar. Thomas Farrow, known associate of Jack Clayton, armed and dangerous. My stomach turned. I excused myself and went outside, telling him I needed air. I stood in the dark, shaken, trying to convince myself I was wrong, that it was just a coincidence, that scars were common, that my grief was playing tricks on me. But I wasn't wrong. The third night I didn't sleep. I lay beside him, listening to him breathe, wondering what kind of man could kill someone's father and then marry his daughter, wondering if he knew, wondering if this was all some kind of sick game. And when the sun rose on the 4th morning, I couldn't pretend anymore.
Thomas didn't move. He just sat up slowly, the blanket falling away, his hands open and empty. He looked at her like a man waiting for a bullet. "You know," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Catherine's voice came out raw. "You killed my father." He flinched, just a little, but enough for her to see it land. "I didn't pull the trigger," he said, "but I was there. I rode with him. I let it happen." His voice cracked, "And I've been trying to outrun it ever since." She wanted to scream, to throw something, to hurt him the way he'd hurt her. But all she could do was stand there, tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I'm a coward," Thomas said, his eyes red-rimmed. "Because I thought if I could just be a different man, if I could just start over, maybe I could deserve you." He shook his head. "But you can't bury the past. I know that now." Catherine's hands were still shaking. "You should have told me." "I know." "You should have let me choose." "I know." The silence stretched between them, thick and unbearable. "I loved you," she whispered. "I let myself love you." Thomas's face crumpled. "I loved you too. I still do. And that's the worst part, because I don't deserve to." She turned away, her heart breaking in her chest. She wanted to hate him. God, she wanted to hate him. But the man who'd held her, who'd laughed with her, who'd made her feel safe, he was still standing there, and she didn't know how to reconcile the two. "You need to leave," she said finally. I can't look at you." Thomas nodded. He dressed in silence, gathered his things. At the door, he paused. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of it. For your father, for lying, for making you believe in something that wasn't real." Catherine didn't turn around. It felt real. "It was real," Thomas said. "That's the only part that was." And then he was gone. Catherine stood alone in the cabin she'd hoped would be a home, and let herself fall apart. She cried for her father, for herself, for the man she'd loved who'd turned out to be a ghost. But here's the thing about the frontier. It teaches you that people are complicated, that good men do terrible things, and terrible men sometimes try to do good. That love doesn't erase the past, but sometimes, just sometimes, it offers a chance at something better. Catherine never saw Thomas again. But years later, she heard he'd turned himself in, confessed to the robbery, served his time. And when he got out, he spent the rest of his life working with men trying to leave their old lives behind. She didn't forgive him, not fully. Maybe she never could. But she let go of the hate, because holding on to it was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. In the end, love can't live beside deceit, but forgiveness can still light a way home. If this tale touched your heart, then don't ride off just yet. There are more stories waiting beneath the western sun. Tales of love, betrayal, and lessons learned the hard way. Subscribe to Frontier Love Tales, where every story reminds us that love still rides, even across the roughest frontier.